So, hi guys. Time for our next president, Thomas Jefferson. He'll be elected in the election of 1800. We've been talking about how it was a really intriguing election because there were a lot of doubts about how the whole presidential election went. And ultimately, Alexander Hamilton is going to rig the votes so that Thomas Jefferson can take office. This is also a really big election because it's the first time that the presidency has passed from one party to another. And there's a whole lot of intrigue about whether it's actually going to work. Like, is Adams really going to give up power? And is Jefferson going to be able to take it? And what if there's a problem and both sides still are claiming power and the democracy becomes mired in this civil war? Didn't happen. Adams left. He wasn't very nice about it. He left in the middle of the night, didn't really welcome the new guy in. But he left, and Jefferson takes office. He gave a famous speech in which he said, "We are all Federalists, we are all Republicans," in which he tried to reassure the Federalists that he was going to put the interest of the nation above party politics. And he walks to his inauguration. That sets a precedent, and thus Jefferson's administration begins. It's 2 terms, and this presentation I'm getting ready to do goes with this handout. We're going to talk about how Jefferson addressed the past, how he deals with problems in the present, and how he shapes the future of America during his term. Okay? So let's head right to the PowerPoint. I'm going to pray that there's not too much glare. There we go. Not too bad. Oh, there's the man himself. Okay, so let's talk our way through this a little bit. This is all still related to Goal 1, which is all about the democracy getting up and running. And the first thing Jefferson's going to do is he's going to undo some of the things the Federalists did. So it makes sense, a new team is in power, and there were a lot of things the Federalists did that he didn't agree with. So the first thing he does is he's going to allow those Alien and Sedition Acts to expire, because those were passed just to weaken the Republicans and keep them from criticizing the government, and also make it harder for immigrants to become citizens and vote for the Republican Party. So it's not surprising he's not going to renew the Alien and Sedition Acts, and they had a sunset clause on them, which meant that they were going to expire, and he let them expire. The second thing that he did is he cut the budget. If you remember, Hamilton thought it was okay to run a debt, but Jefferson did not. He's a typical farmer who avoids debt. And so he cuts the budget pretty sharply. He cuts the social budget. The White House staff is fired. Dinners become a lot less formal in the White House. He also starts answering his own door. Doesn't have as many servants in the house. Also, he cuts the military budget pretty drastically as well. And that's going to cause problems when the War of 1812 comes about. Keep in mind now, the beauty of this program here is that as you need more time to write, or you want to listen to things one more time, you can pause, write what you want, listen to it again. So, don't think you have to keep blistering pace with me. The other thing he did is he downsized the National Bank. If you remember, he never liked the National Bank, so it makes sense that he would make it less powerful and return more decision-making power to the states. He also had to deal with problems in the present. Foreign policy particularly was a problem. Remember, we had never allied with France, and the British and the French were continuing to fight, and our ships kept getting caught up in the crosshairs. So they continued to attack our ships. The French are attacking our ships heading to Britain, so we don't supply their enemy, and the British are attacking our ships headed to France, so we don't supply their enemy. So Jefferson's really at a loss what to do about this, and he decides that, we just won't trade with anyone. And he passes an embargo. An embargo means a refusal to trade. So the Embargo Acts banned trade with both countries. And this was easy for Jefferson to say because he was from Virginia, and the Southerners farm. They don't really rely upon lots of trade and manufacturing for their livelihood. So easy for him to ban trade. He underestimated how absolutely devastating this would be to the northern states, and as a result, the economy in the Northeast was totally ruined. And there was actually a case here where some Northeasterners thought that they should secede from the Union. It was suspicions that Aaron Burr was leading that effort that Hamilton eventually leaked to the press. And that's why Hamilton and Burr dueled in this time period. And if you recall, Burr shot Hamilton, and that's how Hamilton died, was in this duel. And that was all the result of this, the Northeast being upset and threatening to secede from the Union. So it's a very unpopular policy. This whole problem's going to get passed on to Madison, and Madison ultimately is going to be the one who has to deal with it. And we're going to go to war with Britain because they won't quit attacking our ships, and they don't seem to respect our right to be on the high seas. All right. The next thing he does is he addresses the future. Thomas Jefferson is a scientist and a Renaissance man, a true Renaissance man in every sense of the word, and I'll be telling you more about that before we watch his video. But he certainly has a curious mind, and one thing he's very curious about is what is to the west of us. And so westward expansion is a subject that he fixes his mind upon often. Part of this is because we'd already started going into the West to some degree. Daniel Boone helped build a road through the Appalachian Mountains to the West. It was known as the Wilderness Road. Now, Daniel Boone is a bit of a folk hero, and but he was actually a land speculator. He had bought up a lot of land over the Appalachian Mountains, and he needed to figure out a way to get a lot of people there to buy it so the prices would go up. So that's what the Wilderness Road allowed him to do, is get real estate markets on the up and up west of the Appalachian Mountains. Okay, so it cut between Kentucky and Tennessee and is going to begin a flood of people heading west of the kind of natural boundary the Appalachian Mountains had created. Okay, the next thing Jefferson starts thinking is how cool it would be if we could get new land out there, and that land is this yellow land right here is called the Louisiana Purchase. He wants that yellow land, but at this time in history it's owned by Napoleon and the French. The French were using it to grow food to feed their slaves in Haiti. The French controlled the island of Haiti and had massive sugar plantations with thousands of slaves, and they didn't want to have to grow food there because they were making so much money off sugar. So their plan was to use this yellow territory to grow the food. But something really cool happens in Haiti. Well, cool, I guess, if you believe that black people shouldn't have been enslaved, which most people do today, but what I'm trying to tell you is it wasn't very cool to the French at the time, because there's a massive slave revolt in Haiti led by a guy named Toussaint Louverture, and the black slaves overwhelm their masters and take over the island. So suddenly France has lost Haiti, and they don't need to feed their slaves there anymore because they don't have slaves there anymore. So they don't really need this land. So Jefferson sends Robert Livingston and James Monroe to go ask the French if they would like to sell that yellow land there. And very unexpectedly, Napoleon's like, yeah, I'll sell it to you for $15 million. Okay, so this is kind of unexpected. Let me kind of talk you through this particular moment here. This is very unexpected. And what's also not clear is that the president can do this in the Constitution. Okay? It's not clear in the Constitution that the president can grow the size of the country in this way without congressional approval or what the process should be. They just know it's an amazing deal. $15 million, that's like so cheap. I know it sounds like a lot of money to you, but I mean, per acre, it's ridiculously cheap. So Jefferson just makes a decision that, yeah, we're going to buy the Louisiana Purchase. And what's really ironic about this is that that goes against everything Jefferson said he believed in. He believed, through strict construction, that you should only be able to do what's in the Constitution, what's stated specifically in the Constitution. And that the Constitution, if we interpret it strictly, that would keep government from growing too big. And now all of a sudden, he has gone outside of the clear confines of the Constitution and doubled the size of the United States. So it just kind of shows that when you run for president, you might think you know what you believe, but circumstances might be such that you actually end up doing quite the opposite of what you anticipated doing before you took office. So we get the Louisiana Purchase from France for $15 million, and eventually it is going to double the size of the United States and really increase our power and prestige in the world because our country is growing at quite a quick clip. Okay, Jefferson is so curious about the Louisiana Purchase, he's dying to know what's out there. They've heard all kinds of rumors about woolly mammoths and what the natives are like and those kinds of things. So he decides that he really wants to send someone and a team of people to go out there and map it and figure out what's out there. And so he gets his personal secretary. His personal secretary's name is Meriwether Lewis. It's this guy right here. And he asks Meriwether Lewis if he would lead a team to go explore the new territory. It'd be the ultimate survivalist experience. Well, Meriwether Lewis liked the idea, but he didn't want to command the group alone, so he asked if Jefferson, if William Clark, who he had seen as a commander in the war of in the French and Indian War, if he might be able to get him to come co-command the expedition. And Jefferson had his doubts about this, but he said, okay, yep, you and Lewis and Clark can go explore it. Now, because the voyage is called the Lewis and Clark Expedition, okay, so Jefferson agreed we would buy it from France for $15 million. not clearly a power of the president in the Constitution. It goes against strict construction. Oh, I got a little ahead of myself. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is what we've talked about this far. So he's going to send Lewis and Clark to lead an expedition to explore the land. And based on the fact it's called the Lewis and Clark expedition, you might think that it has, like, just the two of them in a canoe, like, heading west. But no. There's a whole platoon of men who they very carefully select. And 40-plus men, I think it was 44, who eventually are going to go all the way to the Pacific. They don't stop at the Louisiana Purchase. They don't stop here. They go all the way to the Pacific to map and chart the territory. They get specimens of flowers. They get all kind of species of animals. At some point, they send some of them in back with bear cubs for the president and all kinds of other trunks of journals and maps and specimens for him to study. So the good news is that I had an opportunity in 2003. We were celebrating the bicentennial of the Lewis and Clark expedition, and I got to go be a reenactor of the Lewis and Clark expedition through the North Carolina Center for the Advancement of Teaching. So I've actually had a lot of experience with the Lewis and Clark expedition, and now that we've taken the time at home to learn this material, we'll have time in class for me to tell you all kinds of crazy stories about the Lewis and Clark expedition, and tell you more about how the expedition happened and what a cool adventure it was. And then we're going to be able to watch a small movie on the Lewis and Clark expedition. So that'll be kind of cool. I'm glad that we took time to look at this stuff at home so that we can do more fun stuff in class. Okay, so yeah, lucky you guys. I'll tell you all about my adventures following in the footsteps of Lewis and Clark around Montana and on the Missouri River just about 10 years ago. Okay, see you soon.